I did really struggle because on a more universal level, I wasn't quite sure what the function of art was. Like I could feel that it was important, but I couldn't really put words to it. I didn't feel like I could necessarily defend it, which now as I'm older and been in this space longer, you know, I feel like I can. But looking back, that was really hard for me. I couldn't, you know, see that it was adding to the finances as opposed to taking away from them. It was time away from my children instead of being, you know, the always there nurturing mother that, you know, I kind of thought was expected of me and healthiest for my kids. Which I've also changed my mind about. You know, it's good for them not to be with their mom all the time and for their mom to have other pursuits. So yeah, it was a struggle for a while to feel like I could allow that to myself and that it wasn't actually a cost overall to my family.
Well, welcome to our tea party. It is piping hot today, as Alondra just discovered. We're really excited to have you here, Crystal. So,
Thank you.
as our guest, we have Crystal Despain. She's been my friend for a while now. We were just talking about it. Like, I have no conscious memory of when we became friends.
We don't know.
It's like we've been friends for a while, and it sort of happened somehow. And
absolutely,
our husbands are friends too, and they're really cute together.
Yes,
yeah.
Isn't that great? Yeah,
got a little romance, and I love it. So, is he coming down this weekend?
He's actually not.
Bummer.
He's not. I brought one of my kids with me instead, which is new.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, traveling with a teenager. That's
nice.
Quieter.
Is it a good teenager to travel with?
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay. He drove half of the time.
Amazing.
He was quiet the other half, and I got to, you know, just think. And
yeah,
I mean, I love him. He can talk. That's fine. But I also don't mind sitting in solitude. So.
Yeah, I can imagine. I have 4 brothers, and some of them you could not pay me enough money to travel with, and others I will travel with anytime. And it's just differences of personalities sometimes.
Yeah. No. He's a great travel companion.
That's great to
hear.
Fun. Well, we had a really good conversation leading up to this episode. And one of the things that you said that really stuck with me that we're going to explore deeply here is this idea that your husband, Mark, when you were newer in your marriage, when you first had kids, that he really just insisted that you didn't disappear behind them and that you kept engaging with your creative work. And so that's something we're going to talk about today is what does it look like to live a fully fleshed out life as a creative within the family environment, but then also talking a little bit about your family dynamic and some of the interesting entrepreneurial things that you've done as a family and how you foster that as a kind of whole ecosystem that you're all living in. But first to start off, give people some context if they're not familiar with your work. Give us like a 30-second who you are as an artist, the type of work you do, maybe some of the shows that you participated in.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's a lot of questions for my brain all at once.
Just pick one.
Yeah. Okay. I do primarily figurative work in a representational style. I really value, for example, classically rendered forms, but paired with something whimsical and unexpected.
Yeah, I love, as a gallerist, I love unpacking your pieces because I never know exactly what I'm going to get in the best sort of way.
Okay.
And your ability to put down paint in such a restrained way in some areas and then so loose in others. It's delicious.
I totally agree.
It's so juicy.
No, it's like we were talking about this before we aired the podcast, but Crystal has like this most incredible painting of baby Jesus. And also like Joan of Arc and stuff. Like you guys just have to look her up. Like look up Crystal Despain. What was it was called Fisher of Men?
Fishers of Men.
Yeah, Fishers of Men.
Yeah.
It is so touching, so moving. And yeah, like you said, I love the combination of, this classical figurative work with like something so whimsical and like beautiful in the background. Unexpected, like you said, it was a perfect way to put it.
And graphic in a very... something that feels very referential of fiber art. Which obviously is kind of the theme of our podcast.
No, that's
tapestries.
So
like your work often reminds me of weaving or stucco or
Yeah, like they're standing in front of a tapestry that like represents their life.
I'm often inspired by fiber works.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, absolutely. The Bayeux tapestry, the medieval embroidery. Oh my gosh.
Oh, well, I can totally see it now.
Yeah.
I'm like, I see that reflected in your work 1000%.
Yeah.
Connected all the dots. Okay, so first kind of topic we want to talk about is you had a real struggle, you said, when you were first starting off, feeling like there was value in what you were doing because you didn't feel like it provided something really obvious to a young family, especially maybe a young family that doesn't have a lot of financial resources, and you're like, this is a selfish thing for me to do to pursue my personal creative work. So give us some insight into like what was going on in your head at that time, and then maybe some of the conversations or experiences that got you out of that thought pattern.
Yeah, absolutely. I did really struggle because on a more universal level, I wasn't quite sure what the function of art was.
Mhm.
Like I could feel that it was important, but I couldn't really put words to it. I didn't feel like I could necessarily defend it, which now as I'm older and been in this space longer, I feel like I can, but looking back, that was really hard for me. I couldn't, see that it was adding to the finances as opposed to taking away from them. It was time away from my children instead of being, the always there nurturing mother that, I kind of thought was expected of me and healthiest for my kids. Which I've also changed my mind about. It's good for them not to be with their mom all the time and for their mom to have other pursuits. So yeah, it was a struggle for a while to feel like I could allow that to myself and that it wasn't actually a cost overall to my family.
Yeah. So do you feel like there was a specific maybe moment or conversation that shifted that? Or was it just little interactions, with your husband encouraging you or maybe other mentors in your life encouraging you that shifted it over time?
Yeah, I actually have a really specific thing that helped a lot. I think it actually was the turning point for me. My husband, it was his idea. He has a beautiful brain. I just love it. But he's a lot braver than I am too. And he knows when I have kind of self-betrayed and tried to keep things more comfortable instead of really putting myself out there. So he suggested, and this was when we didn't have a lot of finances, didn't have a lot of time. He said, let's take getting paid off the table entirely, because I was stressed about even charging for my work because it wasn't as good as I thought it should be. So he said,
we've all been there.
Right, I know,
Or
right?
I've been there.
Yeah.
I might still be there.
Yeah, it's hard. It's
sure.
hard. So I've learned since that it just means you have good taste because you see that, you've got a ways to go and you can recognize
Totally, yeah.
what you're lacking. But still, start selling, do the things. But so this project was called 52 Weeks of Free Art, and I had people send in requests for art, either a story or a photograph or something that they were connected to. And I would choose whoever I wanted to. There was no commitment on my end. Once a week, I would paint it, and then I would present it to the world on my little blog. And at the end of the year, I had a collection of all of these stories that really meant something to the specific people that I was giving them to without any concern about the finances. We did a little show, and then I gave all the pieces away. And the feedback that I got from that, really taught me that this started early, you guys. This started really early.
What put that tissue box?
Yeah, I don't know. Okay.
Too far, apparently.
Yeah, wow. Okay. So what it really taught me, though, was to see beyond the limitations of where my skill level was and what I was bringing into the family, and really understand that even at that level of offering, it really impacted people. So that was beautiful for me.
That's really wonderful.
It's such a gift from my husband, too, because that was a lot of resources for our little family at the time.
Yeah.
And he had to talk me into it.
5 gold stars for him, for sure.
Absolutely.
And something interesting you're highlighting here that I've talked to a lot of women artists about, and we're actually going to dive a little bit deeper too on a later episode, is I think sometimes women see them functioning within, maybe a more traditional domestic sphere, and then trying to do art at the same time as always limiting. And there's definitely limitations. And I think there's ways that we need to rethink some structural things to provide more opportunities to women in those circumstances. But there's also some really unique opportunities, because you being paid for your art was not what was putting food on the table for your kids. And so you had some creative space that, maybe a young dad who's trying to put food on the table for his kids might not. And that doesn't mean, there are definitely women artists who do have that pressure. And it's a different creative environment. So I think something I try to do, as a mentor when I'm working, in my capacity as a gallerist, is to really talk to an artist about, okay, where are you at in life right now? What are your needs? And then how do we address those needs through the work that you're doing? And that's going to look different for different people. And, whether that's a financial need, an emotional need, a social need, and then finding all the resources and, the right mentors and people encouraging you to do those things.
That's important work that you're doing. Yeah. A lot of people don't have a guide. They don't have a mark to, help them see what they're not seeing and, give them that room. And I understand that it's my story and my background in art. Mark and I didn't come from money. We've had to figure a lot of things out, but there's still a lot of privilege in my story.
I was going to just say, even though, there is that, that privilege sprinkle whatever in there and stuff. I do think that that's so incredible though, that, you know, with that time that was given to you and those resources that you had, you stuck to it though, you know, and you took every single week to try to do something meaningful, you know, and to build your skill and to really like learn what it was that you were going to bring to the table. Because one disadvantage I think that a lot of women have coming into any space when they've been raised to care for children, right? Only care for children, right? Or care for the family, which is a very important work, by the way. But when you're raised that way, right, it's like you're not necessarily preparing mentally or your skills to make money, you know, because you're like, that's not going to be my job. So I'm working to develop this other range of skills that's also very beneficial for a family. But it's hard when it's like, you know, now you find
Shifting
yourself
gears.
in this space. Yeah. Like you have this kind of this glimmering opportunity where it's like, oh, I could maybe make something, you know, and make some money at the same time, but I don't have those skills. And it's a whole mindset shift, you know, to allow yourself, to give yourself that permission, you know, to do that.
And I keep trying to figure it out where exactly, you know, these different ideas come from. Because I do feel like I was raised in a way that was like, you can do anything. But at the same time, I'm not sure that my culture really raised me with the idea of like, also though, like, plan on providing.
Yeah.
You know? That wasn't really part of the plan. And it's not really been a necessity for me. But I did lack a lot of confidence in that space.
Yeah. Well, I've noticed that, like, I feel like that's more the narrative. Like, hey, you can do anything up until you're not doing the thing that they expect. Of other people. And then they're like, so when are you going to do that thing? And you're like, wait, I thought you said I could do anything.
Yeah.
So it's kind of this like unspoken, but you know,
there's a menu, but we're not going to tell you about it.
Exactly. You know, you have this expectation that you know is like lingering, you know, in your periphery. So
yeah, and I think that I knew that I wanted to be a wife, and I knew that I wanted to be a mother.
Totally.
So I think that in some ways I sort of stopped my ambition there a little bit. Now, also I love art. You know, that was kind of where I was at. So it was just like, I, you know, was excited to find my person and have those kids, and then going through it, realizing there's more.
Yeah.
You know, I need to be doing more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You mentioned this like really briefly at the beginning, that you've recognized as you've evolved in your mothering that your kids don't need you all the time. And it was one of our earlier guests, Maddie Blomquist, who works at BYU. She talked about her relationship with her mom, who ran a music business growing up, and that she grew up with the expectation that her mother was not always available. And she talked about how beneficial that was for her as a child. So speaking from the perspective as the mother, what have you seen in your evolution? Why has that perspective shifted, that you don't always have to be there for your kids?
Yeah, you know, one of the things that I hope is that it will help their future wives too, seeing that it's not just a matter of you get married and then the mom is there to deplete herself in all of the ways, you know? And yeah, so I think when the kids were young, there was really physical need for me to be close. And I had 4 kids really, really fast. I had a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old when I had twins. And so, yeah.
Wow.
That's brutal.
Yeah, I know, right?
Super mom. That's crazy.
I don't really remember those years very well.
For sure. Oh, yeah.
There's like some trauma blindness
there.
there.
There might be. I remember really loving it and also just never sleeping. So it's fine. It was really hard. It was really hard, but it was great. But there is a shift when you start realizing that your kids don't need you. They just want you more than, you know, you need to allow. So I started carving out more and more times where it's like, it's okay to disappoint the kids. Like, they can know that I love them and that I will be there for them. But also right now, mom's going to go to her studio and she's going to work, and you're okay and I'm okay.
Yeah. I was hanging out with one of my friends this morning. She's got 4 boys, like college to elementary age, and her youngest, like very much, you know, baby of the family, trying to learn how to be independent. She's like, I need this kid to be independent. So she's like, we've been picking specific things and then branding it as this is a independent, you know, whatever. And so it started with like, you're going to take an independent shower. So, you know, you're going to shampoo your own hair, you're going to turn the water on, you're going to get the towel, you're going to get yourself dressed afterwards. And he's mastered the independent shower. So now he's decided that he's going to make himself independent toast. And he calls it like, this is my independent toast.
That is so cute.
So
I love
good.
that.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I had a caboose. 5 years later, I had another one. And it was really a shock to us because we actually had to parent that one. Like the first 4, it was all just like survival. So it's like, there's no way to spoil these children. Like, no possibility. And then the last one, we're like, oh boy, look what we made. we better work on this a little bit. So yeah, it's different, but
yeah.
That's hilarious.
And, you know, speaking as a non-parent, they all come with different personalities too.
Oh, for
100%.
sure. I mean, we have a caboose like in my family or whatever, and I'm always like, where did you come from?
Yeah.
Like he's so different from the rest of us, but there's also like that whole, like you said, other dynamic, where it's like, oh, my parents have
truly.
money now. And,
I know, right?
Yeah.
Being the oldest child, I'm like, geez.
Something that I don't know if it will tie in, but I've noticed my 2 children who have left the house. That's where sometimes, like earlier, I'm nervous that I'm not spending enough time with them, and maybe I'm not, or, I could have done more dinners, or I could have done this or could have done that. But now I've got 2 kids that have been out of the house and they're both functional adults. Whereas a lot of kids their age, they don't know how to cook. They don't know how to clean.
Right.
They don't know how to fix something when it's broken.
Right.
So it's kind of nice to know that, a certain amount of neglect is healthy.
There's some healthy neglect.
It's so interesting too, like how, how we frame that, right? Like neglect and like, I'm trying to be there for them or like not being there for them, or whatever. I find that interesting because I'm like, I feel like you were there for them. You know what I'm saying? Like you were there for them in all the ways that actually mattered. Because like for me, like my mom was like a stay-at-home mom, and every family dynamic is totally different, right? But for my family, I remember I did take her time for granted. I did, because my dad took her time for granted. He's like, she's home and she's not doing anything, right? So
Right.
she must have all this time to like help you guys out. And my mom is an amazing problem solver, and so like when things would go wrong, we were like, okay, we'll go to mom, because mom's going to help us and mom's going to fix it. And my husband has shared like similar stories, waking up, oh man, the science project is like due tomorrow, and she's the one who's making the science project for them, but it's those kinds of things where like, looking back, it's like that was wrong. That wasn't a good thing, for us to do, for us to, expect that from our mom and, for her to feel that if she didn't show up in those ways, then she wasn't there for us.
Yeah.
You know what
and
I'm
it's
saying?
a really tempting thing to feel that if you let your kids down when it's a moment of letting them be independent, like there's some moments where I've had to just be like, okay, just sit, just don't move.
Yeah, no, 100. Like now my mom, she pursues like ceramics and, she's like a math teacher and like, all these things that she's like
her best life.
Yeah, she's like really like flourishing, like figuring out these other strengths of hers and how to apply all the strengths and skills that she's learned being a mother, in these different spaces. And I think that that's so amazing. And, sometimes I wish that she had just been able to pursue that as well when we were children, because I think that it would have also helped her to just be like, okay, like I can set aside the problems from work and now I can focus on the problems here. And, you're just like compartmentalizing your life instead of having it be one long cycle of just the same, I think is really healthy, and I think it can help us to show up, more authentically.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because depleting ourselves and over, functioning and things like that. Like it's not a healthy structure, and it's not a necessary structure. It's like we're partnered in marriage for a reason. We try and have capable children for a reason, and it's so that we can all function together and still thrive and do the things that, we want and need to do.
Yeah, 100%. I even think about, things that I love to do now, right? Where it's like, you loved being a mom, like you wanted to be a mom and have kids and stuff. And it's like, oh, like I love art, and I love reading and, all these things. But if I am only doing that, like I get burnout, in art, this thing that I love, it's like you get burnt out and then, it feels like drudgery. And then I have to like step back, step away from a painting, step away from a project. And then when I come back to it, I'm like, okay, I feel refreshed. I actually see what's wrong here now.
Yeah.
And now I can like work towards it. And I feel like, why would motherhood be any different?
Yeah,
right?
It's not. It's not, because you can get unhealthy very quickly, if you're just letting that be your only thing. And that is the temptation. That's where a lot of validation, I feel like, in the past has come from is, that saintly mother that
how much can you self-sacrifice?
Yeah, exactly. And that's a narrative that I think is changing, but it needs to be completely
off the table.
It's not okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't raise healthy kids. It doesn't raise the next generation of healthy moms.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, you mentioned earlier too that it doesn't raise the next healthy generation of boyfriends and husbands either, because you've got. Doesn't. So your kids are? Is it all boys or just?
Yeah, 5 boys.
5 boys. Yeah. It's like you're.
I know.
Future,
I'm like a future husband farm.
Yeah.
Amazing.
If they all decide Take notes,
married.
ladies.
Yeah. That's right.
But I love that you're thinking about that, and it's not just about like. I think people are like, oh, I'm going to raise a young feminist when they're raising a girl, but they don't think about, okay, how am I raising a young boy to create space for a woman to, have pursuits and to be a full person in that relationship. And I think that segues really nicely into the next conversation in your relationship with your husband, Mark. And you'd mentioned specifically that he was always pulling your paints out. Like, what did that look like? Was he like physically sitting you down and being like, you will paint now?
Yeah, kind of literally. And, it sounds a little bit maybe overbearing, but it was from a place where he understood me and he saw why I was not doing what I should be doing. He has a pretty clear, not always, but he has a pretty clear view of myself when I don't. So if I'm self-sacrificing too much, or if I'm hiding behind the things that are the most virtuous, which is, wife and mother.
Right.
He could pick that out pretty fast. So yeah, he literally would just drag out my tote of paints and hire a babysitter and be like, I know you need this.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I don't think guys understand how hot stuff like that is.
I know.
So
I'm over here like, hey,
I know.
Like, all of our husbands can hang out. And
That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I love that.
I don't know if you saw LDS Changemakers, the Instagram account. She posted a rad dad video for Father's Day. And it was like all these dads like vacuuming and taking care of the kids. And I was like, oh, you're out here posting thirst traps today.
Oh my gosh. You know what's so great about that? My husband's real estate company is called Rad Real Estate.
Oh, that's amazing.
Oh, no, that's awesome.
Yeah. He's literally a rad dad.
He's literally a rad dad.
That's amazing. So continuing that, did you two ever have, like, when you're dating or married, explicit conversations about what this balance would look like? Or is this something that just kind of evolved throughout the course of your marriage?
Yeah, no, it evolved. I think that I really fell into the trap of kind of romanticizing what marriage was and what it would do for me and how much I would just love taking care of, my children and all these kinds of things. Well, it turns out I'm no Martha Stewart. I'm like, oh, I'm actually not good at this and I really don't like it. So aside from playing with my babies, So yeah, it was something we really had to grow into. We had to kind of figure it out. Mark came from a more traditional family. His mother is like the best cook in the entire world. And his dad went to work at the same company for 1 billion years. So it was very
white picket fence.
Literally. Yes. So we did have to kind of figure out how, we settled into things. There were definitely conversations about the entrepreneurship before we got married. He led with, I'm never going to have a job.
You're like, oh, that's maybe not attractive.
I know. I was like, I feel like this is a red flag. And I think our engagement story kind of happened before we dated. It's a whole long story. So kind of married
Sounds
a
like we
stranger.
need to get into it.
Yeah,
I know. It's a whole long
marriage?
thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically. So it was a little bit like, oh, what did I get into? I should have asked a few more questions, which I do advocate asking a lot of questions. But anyway, then he explained, he's like, no, I just don't want to ever be employed. I want to have my own, businesses and that kind of stuff. And that was a little bit new for me. None of our families did that, really. My mom did run a preschool out of our home as a way to stay home and keeping an educator. But, that was kind of the closest that I had seen. So it was a little bit of a leap of faith being like, oh, you don't want to be a doctor and just, or a lawyer or whatever. Like, aren't those your two things you should be doing?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So it seems like you also had to do some growing as well. Like in the same way he had to put his faith in you, and also recognize your capabilities. You had to do the same for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I did, I was first attracted to him probably for a lot of reasons, but I really was attracted to his ambition and his confidence. Like we're very different personality types. If you know Enneagrams, I'm a 9, he's a 1. So, but I was really attracted to that about him, that he had this energy for ideas and doing things, and he just wanted life to be an adventure. And I was kind of ready to sign up for that, but it was also like, I don't really know what this looks like.
Totally.
Do any of us do, though?
No, you really don't. You don't know.
Yeah. That's something I've grappled with a lot in my life, because I'm an oldest child, come from like a pretty organized and strict family in many ways. And just, I like to know what I'm getting myself into, and I like to have it planned out, and I like to have things predictable, and I like to be in control of things. And the more I've, run a business and been in a marriage relationship and, tried to make decisions as a family, the more I'm like, oh, you really just can't predict a lot of this. You really don't know what you're getting yourself into with those things. And I think there's some really good principles that you can lead with, and some good structures that you can provide yourself to address issues as they come up. But you really have to let go of the delusion that you're in control of the situation.
Yeah. You learn really quickly the only thing you can really control is yourself.
Yeah.
and really the impact that has on your
Mhm.
situation and the people you're with.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you feel like there's any specific structures or maybe communication patterns or things that you feel like have helped you as you've grown through this experience of learning to trust Mark and to trust yourself and to pursue non-traditional
Mm-hmm.
paths?
Yeah, I think I've really learned that the more I'm willing to lean into something that feels hard, but also somehow right, or at
Mhm.
least something that's not wrong, if that
Mhm.
makes sense. Like we we will do crazy things like move from a really big, beautiful house into the back of, a garage for an Airbnb that we decide, that we're gonna do another project and now we need to scale down or things like that. So there's a lot of discomfort in what we do. There's a lot of social discomfort in what we do too because people think we're kind of crazy or unfortunately sometimes people assume that maybe Mark's pushing me into something
Mm.
because he's the nomad between the two of us.
Yeah.
But I
Like,
found
oh, he's not a
You're
good
just
provider
like,
or
yeah,
something. Yeah.
exactly.
The unhappy
But
tag
it's
along, yeah.
really, but it's really, one adventure after the other. And I've kind of learned that when I lean into that, when I really choose it for myself too, I have to
Mhm.
choose it for myself. And I think that's one of the biggest things I've learned later in adulthood is that I need to choose and then I need to stand by my choices,
Mhm.
even when it's uncomfortable, it's hard. So suddenly I'm missing my big bedroom. I chose that and look
Mhm.
at all the benefits that are happening. And it's just a chapter in our life and it has really interesting things about it, just
Yeah.
like the last chapter did. And like I assume the next chapter will.
Mhm.
It really helps me let go of this idea that I'm trying to build something that looks a certain way and instead gather these experiences of growth and of wisdom and of relationships.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I love that. Are you going to say,
Yeah.
say something?
I did have a question.
Yeah.
For everyone who doesn't know, like me, what do you mean a nomad, and what do you mean living in a garage?
Oh, I'm
yeah.
so sorry.
I
Okay,
was
yeah.
like, this sounds kind of interesting. I want to know
Absolutely.
everything. Yeah.
Okay, so my husband's background is, I was about to say religion. Yes, it's that too. But no, professionally real estate.
Oh, okay.
And so we've done like all things real estate. And I've spent a lot of time helping start those businesses and logos. And I even, for some reason, we thought me bookkeeping was a good idea for half a minute. Like, we've learned a lot about me. But so we've done a lot of fixing of houses to either flip or keep as rentals or Airbnbs, short-term rentals. And sometimes we fix up a house to live in it for a season and we really enjoy it. I think the longest we've been anywhere was 6 years.
Okay.
All kind of in the same area. So our kids have had a pretty stable, like they, mostly gone through the same school, that
Okay,
kind of
gotcha.
stuff.
Mhm.
So there's certain things that were important to me that it's like, okay, well, let's keep these things kind of constant.
For
And
sure.
like for right now, the last move we made, my studio was in home and I knew our new situation wasn't going to be good for me for work.
Yeah.
So that was one of my conditions. My three conditions were kids keep their school, we keep the dog,
Yeah.
and that I have an off-site studio so
Yeah.
that I could work. Even if my comeback and, in the evenings place was different or a little chaotic sometimes or under construction, that I knew where I could go to work and have everything be, my protected space. So
That makes sense. That is a really good like structure and system. See, compromise right
Yeah,
there.
exactly.
yeah,
Clear
I think
expectations.
we've gotten
Yes.
really good at that,
Yeah.
like figuring out, okay, what do I need out of this situation? What are you hoping for? And how can we like creatively combine that to make something cooler than, just me staying comfortable or you, like hopping off into a van and disappearing or whatever. It's like, what's that middle ground where I'm not ready to live in a van, but also.
Yeah. Well, I love that you're like, here are my 3 specific conditions. I feel like, at least the way I was raised, I sometimes had this thought that a good marriage, you just go into it and you just do whatever it takes to make it work.
Mhm.
And that, like, it's not that you don't have boundaries, but the idea of like setting like hey, I demand these things out of my marriage, like that was asking too much.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish that's something I'd learned earlier in my marriage and something that I'd learned to, ask from my spouse as well. Because there's definitely been situations where we both, made assumptions about what the other person needed or wanted, and it's ended poorly, and we've had to work through that. And if you'd gone into it saying, hey, like, what do you need to be emotionally fulfilled in this situation? What do you need to have the right social structure or the right career opportunities in this moment? And like how are we splitting that? Because, sometimes you do have to make compromises between your two needs instead of just being like, well, we'll just figure this out and like the marriage will survive regardless. Like, no, that's it's not a healthy way to approach it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, how do you think your love for your husband has grown given the path that you guys followed now compared to how you think it might have grown if it grew?
Yeah.
If you guys had followed a different path and maybe he was the only one who's able to pursue his entrepreneurial pursuits.
Right. I think when both partners in a marriage are able to really pursue the thing that makes them feel alive, for him, it's moving. It's, living in all the different places and all the different conditions, being creative with, our kids and businesses like that makes him feel really alive. And, for me, painting and nerding out on painting is something that makes me feel really alive. So we don't ever try to take that away from each other. We try to make room for both of those things and find out how they both can work each time. And so I think that as I've watched him be so attentive to the things that I feel and need, or even just think I need, and later kind of realize, I didn't need that. I'm fine. I'm still really happy. Like, you kind of find things fall out that you're like, I thought I needed that, and I actually don't. Like, that's not. Yeah, but he's always been really interested in what I need and careful about not mowing me over, because he is a much stronger personality type than I am. He's a little more convicted in his opinions about things than me, So he's learned to be careful with that, and I really appreciate that, because I was very vulnerable at a lot of points in our marriage where he could have done some real damage. So I'm very grateful for that.
It's amazing.
Thank God for healthy men.
I know.
I know.
Snaps.
Right.
Something that I thought was that I think is like so cool, connected to this is, so I was talking with my youngest brother, and, he's growing up with like social media, right? And like in the TikTok space and in like, Instagram reel space, there's just like this war right now between men and women, especially I think aimed at the younger generation, just all this like beef and divisiveness between them. He said something along the lines where he's like, feminism isn't what it used to be in the past, right? He's like, feminism now is just a hatred of men. And I was like, 1000% there are women who hate men.
Yeah.
Totally. Just like there are, misogynists, as well, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I was like, I think, the movement that you're seeing now that unfortunately is being portrayed in a very polarizing way, I think for their generation and for everybody, but, especially them when they're young and impressionable, is the movement of women not needing men, but not in a negative way. You know what I'm saying? Like not needing men for just basic survival, like getting a bank account, having a paycheck,
owning property.
Yeah, owning property. Yeah.
Voting,
things like that.
Yeah.
And I was, we just had this conversation where I was like, this is like such good news for you, because for the first time in forever, your worth is not based on how much you can provide for a family, but innately you can just have worth, and you can just join with someone else, with a partner, and create something beautiful together, both of you, without having to rely on each other for survival. Instead, you can rely on each other for flourishing and happiness. And isn't that so much of a better
that you can actually choose each other?
Yes.
When you're not fully reliant on each other.
I love that. That was actually, we should just make that the title. You can now actually choose each other, because it's so, like, how many people, in the other generations and stuff, were forced to stay in, marriages that weren't working, or poor situations, because they didn't have the financial means to leave, or they didn't have, the voice and the conviction to help to make things better, because that just wasn't the expectations of their time because of their gender, So I'm like, of course that shift is going to be shown in a very like polarizing way. Of course there are going to be people who are angry, about the way that women have been treated in the past. But I'm like, we need to recognize that at its core, I think this movement is a really positive movement. It has so much potential to be like just amazing, and we can all be so happy and truly work together. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, Alondra and I were talking about this with a group of friends a few months ago. One of them was kind of bringing up the question of like, marriage is hard. Like, what do you do about this? And we're all talking about our individual marriages. And one of the things we dove into was how our perspective on divorce has really changed after we got married. And we were both raised in an environment where like divorce is a swear word. Like, you don't bring it up, you don't think about it. It's like once you're married, you're just stuck. And shifting that mindset from like, divorce is kind of always on the table, but not in a like I might leave you at any minute, but in a I am actively choosing you.
Yeah.
Like I'm not here because I have to be here. I'm here because I'm choosing to be here. And that really shifts your mindset of how you care for your marriage, at least in my personal experience.
So my kids are getting into the age group now where, they're looking for spouses or, they're at least, they can. And one of the pieces of advice that I felt really strongly to give them was don't marry. It sounds so wrong, but don't marry someone you can't leave. Meaning, marry somebody who can stand on their own 2 feet, that can choose you instead of need you.
Yeah. I love that. I'm like, life happens, right? There might be,
totally.
right? Yeah, totally instances where we do need each other, but that shouldn't be the basis.
The basis.
Yeah, codependency.
Yeah, you shouldn't go into a marriage trying to rescue somebody, especially if they're not working on themselves.
Like, they don't want to be rescued.
So
or expecting them to fix all your problems.
Yeah, exactly. And you can love somebody and you can hope for the best for somebody, but you have to be careful about who you're partnering with because that's the life that you're choosing. And like you said, you don't know what's coming. And I know that if something horrible happened to me or to Mark, where that dynamic shifted, we can take care of each other.
Yeah.
But I also know that there's situations that come up where the person that you married is not the person that you are married to anymore,
Yeah.
And sometimes,
or they get hit by a bus.
Or they get hit by a bus. There's just so many things that can happen. But start off with somebody that feels like a partner to you, that can get into the arena with you.
And I think, too, like, they should invite you to be better, but I think it needs to be an invitation, not a force thing. Like, if you're expecting them to, like, force you to be better, or, expecting to be able to force them to be better versus someone who invites introspection and gives you opportunities to grow. And I think that's something I've really appreciated about my husband is that he challenges me sometimes and we fight about it sometimes. But at the end of it, oftentimes I'm like, okay, he sees something in me I don't see in myself that I, might need to fix or I might need to reassess, and that, there's edges that have to be softened along the way.
Yeah, you had a recent episode that aired that was talking a lot about friction. And I've thought a lot about that with my marriage and how you want friction. Like sometimes I hear about people that are like, oh, my marriage has just been like smooth as silk. And I'm like, well,
I always have questions when people say that.
I know. I'm like, I'm not. Yeah, exactly. I want to know more about that. It sounds great. But also, I think a certain amount of friction like holds each other up, right? Holds you together. And it'll, take off some of those sharper edges too. And I think that one of the things that has helped me be a better partner, like one of the things by far, has learned to sit in the discomfort of the things that he sees in me that aren't very likable, that I need to confront and I need to decide if I'm going to change.
Yeah. No, I remember when my husband and I were dating and everything, I knew he had his rose-colored glasses on. 2 months in, right? He's like,
which is kind of great. But
yeah. And I was like, you don't know me. I was like, bro, I've got so many issues. After we got married, I remember our first year of marriage was really hard because so when we were dating, right, I was like, I'm not going to look for signs, for like, should I marry this person or whatever? Because I think that those can, you can just trick your own self, right? You're like, I feel like blue and that car is blue. Must be destiny, whatever, because you just want to be with them. Sure. And so I was like, no, I'm going to go into this, like, my eyes wide open was my thoughts. But I would be lying if I said there weren't like some weird, signs or whatever that like weren't, connecting. But anyway, I tried to make my own
God
decision.
was like with a foghorn like, Alondra.
This is your person.
Yeah, that's how I got married.
Oh, yeah, right?
But
it's like, little caveat though. If you are getting the foghorn from God, just know that, sometimes it's like, there is the person that they are right now and that God thinks they can be is not necessarily the person they will choose to be. Right.
I love that. That is so good.
So don't stay if they don't choose to be.
Absolutely.
Because that was kind of the problem that we faced in our marriage with both of us, right? Where it was like, that was our whole first year where it was like the people that, like, now that we've moved through that, I was like, oh my gosh, I totally see the vision. Whatever, with like God putting us together.
It's like that ugly middle phase of a painting where you're like,
exactly.
This started great. I think I can get somewhere great, but this is really not going well.
Yeah. Oh man. So that's really like what we were facing, right? And so I remember during that time, I felt very deeply betrayed by God even, and betrayed by myself, because I was like, I am usually so astute and I can really read people really well.
I'm brilliant.
Crazy.
What's wrong with this?
Like, this doesn't make any sense, but yeah, I was like, wow, I've betrayed myself. Like, I feel betrayed by God. But as we were able to work through these issues, something really beautiful emerged, is because, we were both actively choosing that. Because again, for both of us, even though it was hard, we knew, again, divorce is on the table. It's like, if we don't get our act together, whatever, it's like, then this is probably never going to get together, So anyway, but being able to choose that, and both of us actively working to change, like, now the dynamic is so beautiful. And now, if people were like, oh, how's your marriage? I'd be like, oh, it's smooth as silk, not necessarily because it's like, oh, it's always blissful all the time, but because, like, I guess I always know that he's on my team, so even when we're fighting and stuff, I'm like, nah, but at the end of this, we're going to be like, hey, I love you so much. So we're going to make up and it's going to be fine. And, and we'll both change and be better because we argued about this thing.
Yeah. You kind of build up a tolerance and a patience for the fact that you're going to hit bumps.
Yeah.
But it doesn't, shake me like it did at the beginning of my marriage. Yeah. Doesn't have me wondering about this person that I married, I'm like, we'll be all right. We just need to, learn and grow.
And he and I, we both struggle with our ancestral father's anger issues, right?
It's in the blood.
Exactly right. And so it was so funny. We went to Europe this a month ago, and we were on this biking trail. Anyway, it turns out it's a walking trail. We didn't know this. So we ended up on this trail. It's El Camino in Spain. It's a Catholic pilgrimage, is like 200. We were doing the last 200 kilometers, whatever. Anyway, so we end up on this walking trail instead of the biking trail. Didn't realize it until we're at the bottom of this mountain, and there's mud going straight up and rocks, and we have our bikes and our giant backpacks, and we're like, oh my gosh. But we couldn't go back because we had to go up the mountain, because that was where our albergue was, the hostel that we were going to stay at. So it was in this place called Osebrero. So 4 hours later, we're still pushing our bikes up and everything, and I'm gassed. I'm like, I cannot take another step, and the sun is setting, and my husband's like, come on, we gotta make it to Osebrero. So we finally got to the top of the mountain, and he's there's still ways to go, but we at least came to a point where we could kind of walk like this, and he grabs my bike. He's like, just let me push it. And he was like pushing both of our bikes, and the bike front wheels are like this. So he's like, like that. And they fell over, and it was so funny now, but yeah, we like cuss each other out. And then literally like 2 minutes later, he's like crying, and he's like hugging me, and he's like, I'm your husband. I should never talk to you like that. And I'm like, I'm your wife. I love you so much. And it just, but like, if that happened a year ago, right, I would have been like, oh my gosh. And by the way, you shouldn't cuss your partner. Like I said, we're working on that. Yeah, exactly. We're working on that. We're like, okay, gotta chill with this, like with our ancestral rage, coming through. But, to me, it's like, it's such a point or whatever, where it's like, at the end of the day, we were on that mountain together, and we had to work together as a team to get to Osebrero before nightfall, so we didn't freeze to death. Yeah. And so sometimes it's do or die in those relationships, but those are really, that's the refiner's fire. That's when you really figure out, like, okay, are we really in this together, and can we make it together?
Yeah, so. I think people look for something that's going to be really comfortable. And for me, that's not, it's not reality, but it's also not the thing. Just assume you're going to be in the fire. You're going to be in the arena. Who do you want in there with you?
I love that. And I love that you say that too, because like you have really intentionally chosen like a life of growth, like you could have chosen just, not pain and stuff, and everything, but you, like, your husband encouraged you, and you made that choice to like put yourself out there and pursue that. And he's making that choice, to pursue his entrepreneurial pursuits. So yeah,
absolutely. We made space for each other and encourage each other to step up, but then you can only be encouraged so much. You have to be willing to put in the hard work and, cultivate the passion and all that.
Lead a horse to water.
Yeah, absolutely.
But will they drink?
Yes.
So one element we talked about previously as well is how you've included your kids in this process. It's not just about you and your husband doing your entrepreneurial things, but you found ways to create projects where everyone was invested and grew and had opportunities together. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Okay, so something really specific that we've done was born of a compromise. So I come from a long line of educators, and so I just assumed we were going to pay for our kids to go to college, right? I'm like, that's what good parents do, you help them out with college. And my husband's like, why would we do that? Like, oh boy, what do we have here? So we kind of figured out, well, what are our actual values in this situation? Break it down. It's like, what is it about me paying for college that's important to me? What is it about him not that's important to him? And we came down with the realization that he wants them to have skin in the game and to make choices. And I wanted to help our kids in a way that multiplied their efforts. I wanted to be able to feel like we were being somewhat generous with our children, because it is hard to like figure out, how do I get from here with the limited resources and life experience to all of a sudden, like this career or whatever. Like, it's daunting, and I wanted them to feel like we were supporting them. So this is what, again, I think this was mostly Mark's idea. This is how his brain works. I just love it. He's like, well, what about this? What about we each summer buy a project house and we all work on it? Anybody who's, home, not on a mission, because 2 of our boys so far have chosen to do missions. So we work on it, and, the 10-year-old or 12-year-old now isn't going to get as much work in as the, 18-year-old, like just doesn't have the capacity. Mark is always going to be the one who's up before everybody else working. So right away, this isn't a fair situation, right?
Right.
But we're going to divide the equity by 7. So everybody gets an equal part of the house equity. And then when it comes time for them to go to college, they have to choose, do they want to have us buy their equity? Do they want to get loans? Have they been trying to get scholarships? Do they want to work? So it's actually something that, they have to decide for themselves and is available to them. And so we've tried to do something like that. In some years it's been leaner. We haven't been able to keep the house. We'll flip it and then, pay them or whatever. But that's been the general way that we've tried to include our kids in learning about finances and investment and working and fixing things and making, choices with their futures. And,
I love that.
It's like, if you want to be a PhD in English, that's great. But what's the financial situation for you?
Right.
Really.
Right. I really love that, because I can see where both of you are coming from. Because it's like, I know kids who like their whole college was paid for and they did not care. They did not show up. It's like, if you're coming from a background
As an educator?
as an educator, it's like, you better be caring, But then I've also seen other people where it's like their parents didn't give them any money for college. They didn't have anything. And so they ended up not being able to finish college or like go to college, So there's like there's that balance, I know, like for me, with my parents, they were like, we've saved up X amount for you, so good luck. Basically, so it's like, use it carefully, because like this is all that you have. And so, but that was really encouraging for me, because like when I came home from mission, I was like, I have no money, if I need to go to college. It was nice because then I could look and I could kind of budget, okay, this is how much I have, so I can take this out and it will hold me over while I'm working this job to get to next semester. So I've never heard of it done that way before. But I really like it, because those are like such real world skills, equity. Also, house flipping is just such a good skill to have, period.
Like, it can fix anything.
Oh my gosh. I've literally thought about that with my husband all the time. We're like, dang, we fixed our washing machine and we were like, are we like Joanna Gaines now?
Right?
This is crazy. Yeah. So respect. I think it's amazing. Yeah.
I love that.
I did have one last baby tangent for you.
Yeah.
The arranged marriage.
Oh yeah. Well, that's like, kind of a long story.
You gotta at least like condense that, explain that a little bit. I was like,
it's the Reader's Digest version.
Okay, the Reader's Digest version is that I was not interested in dating anybody. I had my life figured out. I had my husband picked out. And he was on a mission, that story. And, we ended up, Mark and I were friends, and we ended up accidentally the only ones hanging out. Everybody else ditched us at the last minute. And short version is that he hit on me. And I was upset about it, because that was not the arrangement that we
He's got Riz.
Yeah, he does. And not only that, he'd been like working his way into, like, he'd bring my grandparents gifts.
Oh, that's smooth.
No, yeah. For the grandparents. Like, I get it. Like
That's
he
next
was
level game.
I know he was laying the groundwork, but yeah. So he kind of hit on me, and I did not react well. And then short version is God intervened and was just, it was visionary for me. Actually, for him too. We kind of had different experiences having the same experience. So we didn't really know what each other was totally getting out of this. But I had words. I had specific instructions.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I knew, like, it had kind of materialized by morning, like, you know, conceptualized the fact that I was getting married by that morning. And it took him all the way to that night to say something. And I was like, what took you so long? It was, you know, kind of ridiculous, but, you know, that was our story.
That's so you felt like almost like cosmically arranged.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I honestly, I think that that's the only way that it was going to happen. Like, I really do. I think that God steps in when he needs to.
Yeah.
When they need to.
Yeah.
Because I really do. I also think that my oldest was probably like, could we please get this figured out? Like, I am in a hurry. He's
that's banging on the door.
Him. Yeah. So that's kind of the joke, that it was him. But yeah, it was, I think, the only way that I was going to be able to make the choices that I needed to make and shift gears and confront the things that I needed to confront to change my life in that way. And, I'm so glad I did. And I also think that I needed that for later, for when things got really hard, to be able to look back and be like, I've seen our potential. Because I think that's what that was for me. It was a combination of specific instructions for the now, and also this is the potential you have with this person.
Yeah.
You know, in some abstract, cosmic kind of experience.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. It's kind of funny. I had like a very similar experience with my husband, but sort of like the opposite. That took me a little bit longer to get on board.
Yeah.
In some ways. So we met online, hadn't met in person. We were just like talking. We'd FaceTime and stuff. I was coming to visit Utah in a few weeks, and I'd written a talk for my singles ward. And I sent it to him, mostly just kind of proofread. It was like, hey, you know, like, you're a return missionary. You're smart. Take a look at this. Like, does it make sense? Like, it really wasn't like much from my perspective. It was just like, this is what I'm doing with my life. I'm trying to include you in my life, you know, as I can in a long distance relationship of sorts. And that talk, I guess, was so profound. He just was basically like, I'm going to marry this girl.
Wow. Way to go, Esther.
I know. Sacrament talk, apparently, is how I was catching the boys. And so we were on different time zones. So I'd like sent him the talk and gone to bed. And I woke up the next morning and he'd shipped flowers to my front door.
Oh my gosh.
And bought me a second plane ticket so I could come back for, like, I hadn't even gone out the first time, but he'd always like, you're going to come back for Christmas break too.
Wow. No wonder our husbands are friends.
I know. They're like, they have very similar personalities. And like, I dated kind of a long string of guys who just could not commit. Who are just like, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. I don't know what I'm doing with this relationship. You're kind of scary because you have a lot of big goals and dreams. So like, I don't know what to do with you. And so to have a guy on what seemed like such a random like whim be like, yes, this is what I want with my life and I want with our relationship was super scary. And so I didn't talk to him all day. And so I guess he spent the entire day in a complete panic because he just, you know, dropped like $500 on this girl he'd never met and was like, yes. And then I just totally ghosted him. And I like went and did some stuff I needed to do for work and for school and went on a hike by myself. And I remember I was sitting in the woods, like praying and being like, is this guy a psycho? Like, this seems like a lot.
I love it.
And the clear answer I got in that moment wasn't, you know, you need to marry this guy. It was, you've been wanting someone who is more proactive. Stop complaining.
That's great.
It's like, you should at least give this a shot.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I stand corrected.
That's
Like,
amazing.
fair.
Yeah. But then it took like a few more weeks. Then I was like, oh yeah, we need to get married.
A few weeks.
Yeah.
A few weeks. Yeah.
That's so awesome.
So yeah. So I guess as our closing question, since we talked a lot about relationships today, for any of our listeners maybe who aren't married yet, two things. Like, what is something they could focus on about themselves? Because I think like a lot of times we think about, you know, how am I preparing myself for marriage? But no, how are you preparing yourself for life, which then makes you a good life partner, especially when you're trying to tackle things that are a little bit scarier, like a creative career. So how can they prepare for that? But then also, you know, what things should they look for in a partner that's going to support them in that kind of a lifestyle?
Oh, I think those are such great questions. And I really love what you said. How do you prepare for your life? You know, not to, you know, necessarily be a partner. But I think that it's really important to understand what you value. And I don't mean just like, the morals and the things that you think you should value, but like, what's your energy level? What are the things that you bring you like, real energy in your life? Like, what makes you feel alive? Understand what those things are and be a real observer of people. Find out what you like in people that are around you, and not just looking for, that romantic person, but in any situation. Like, how does this person talk to me? How do I feel about that? How am I able to hold my energy against this kind of a person or with this kind of person? So I think it's just really understanding. I don't want to say what you want in life because it's so hard, especially if you're young, to know who you are and what you want. I think it's a little easier to sit down and say, what are some of the qualities of people that I really value the most? And how can I be that person also, so that I can recognize that other person.
Totally.
Yeah, I love that. Any thoughts from you, Alondra, on that?
I hate it when you do this. But I'm not ready. Wait.
It's okay. We'll just cut that part out.
I know.
And I don't know if I answered 2 questions in there or just one.
Yeah,
Okay,
it was what were the 2 questions you said again?
Like,
it was
how are you preparing yourself and how are you looking for someone?
okay,
You kind of like blend them together. I think that was great. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree with you, and I really love, again, what you said, Esther, about us having to prepare, right, for our lives and stuff. Something that I have thought about too, at least when it comes to a romantic partner, is just someone who is humble, who sees your personhood first and your womanhood second, because I think, even if, after, like, if you do get married or if you choose not to get married, it is so important to be able to see people's personhood first, because you are going to have colleagues, you're going to have hopefully friends, of the opposite sex. Not saying you hang out with them one-on-one all the time, after you're married or something like that, or in a committed relationship, but you need to be able to be cordial and friendly, with people without expecting anything romantic in return.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I don't feel like culturally we're always prepared for that, especially in religious spaces that highly value marriage. It's very, let's prepare for marriage and for romantic, partnerships, which are very important. But majority of your relationships you have with other people are not going to be romantic, right? So you need to learn how to live in those spaces and, make space for them, make space for yourself as well.
Yeah.
I love that you highlighted that. It's something I've thought a lot about. In my professional life, I have been the only woman or, one of maybe 2 women in a room 80-90% of the time.
Yeah.
And I was lucky I grew up with brothers, and I grew up with a lot of guy friends in high school and a lot of guy friends in college. And so I had to learn a lot along the way, how to develop just really robust friendships with people across the board and to not see everyone as a potential romantic partner.
Yeah.
And that's been a lifesaver in being able to navigate spaces that are predominantly male and to be able to create space of my own in those and genuine connections and mentorships and things like that. And it's just being able to communicate and connect are life skills that never fail you.
And that's something that I actually do admire about you, is that that I noticed with Esther, is that she's very like, you're like cordial, you're like to the point or whatever, not like abrasive, but I am like way too friendly sometimes. I'm like, what's up, guys? Whatever stuff, and it's like some like 40-year-old colleague, male, whatever. It's like,
oh, I do that too sometimes. Yeah. And there's like sometimes when I overshoot it, I was like, oh, we are not that close at friends. Okay.
No, yeah.
Noted.
Yeah, my bad. Wait a second. Yeah. I'm like, okay, I need to chill out. So anyway, but I do think that you navigate that like pretty well. And, I've noticed that in like the artist space, especially here in Utah, like people are very friendly, and they're very like, the networks are tight and they're close. And yeah, I think, I'd say fairly open to outsiders, maybe, I think
right? Better than most. Yeah.
Definitely better than most. Yeah. When I hear about other artists or whatever,
like,
I'm like, whoa, that really
moved
sucks.
to Utah.
Really,
it's great here.
Yeah. Except it's on fire right now.
Yeah.
But,
I noticed.
Yeah.
Welcome to Gotham.
Yeah. I was driving in. I'm like, I can't breathe anymore.
Yeah. We all need to bring back masks just for our lungs.
Yes.
But yeah, I think like, I admire that about, the art community here. And, I think it just shows, I don't know, this is a plug for liberal arts. This may be a hard jump, but I really feel like, if you're in the liberal arts and stuff, if you're, involved in that kind of space, I really feel like you come to admire, creativity in other people, and you respect that aspect of them. And I don't know, you're just able to, you see the personhood of each other, because that's what we're trained to do, you know?
I'd say if the community is fostered correctly, because I've definitely been in spaces in liberal arts that were so toxic.
That's actually so fair.
So toxic.
Very
It's like, you know, the stereotype of like the drama department, right?
That's so fair.
But yeah, I feel like we're really lucky. And you're sort of part of the extended Utah art community, I would say, Crystal.
Yeah,
and
well,
you
and
come
I'm
and
really
engage a
lucky
lot,
because I feel like I have the Utah community that always welcomes me in, even though I'm kind of the, you know, the outsider a little bit.
You're like the cool cousin that comes into town occasionally.
Okay, yeah. Or that you keep in the basement and you let up every once in a while, or that. But then I also have an incredible group in Denver too that has a lot of the same values as far as generosity of ideas and encouragement, and, you know, just that synergy of like we're rising together kind of a mentality.
Rising tide lifts all boats.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And so I feel really, really lucky to be a part and an observer in both of these communities that share a lot of those values, and the artists and the art that is coming out of those communities is so good.
Well, it's consistently better.
It
is. You know,
is.
I'm biased, but like I feel like I see the art that's coming out of this really tight-knit collaborative community that we have here in Utah County especially, and you know, it might not all be cutting edge at the moment, but just looking at the growth that I've seen happen in the artists, especially the women artists, and you know, even with like all of these established male artists who provided so much mentorship. Like I look at Howard, like neither Alondra and I would be where we are without Howard's mentorship. It's like we're going to be in such an amazing spot in like 5 to 10 years.
It's exciting. Yeah. It's really exciting to be part of a community like that. Absolutely.
So yes, I guess that's kind of a fun closing plug, that whether your community is like your marriage and your family, or whether it's like
show up.
Show up and be willing to give back and to communicate
to expand,
and
you know, that community, because your marriage and stuff, you know, that's the most important community, but expand it, you know, a little bit, because I think
maybe don't expand your marriage, you know, unless it's your thing. I won't judge you for that.
Well, you know, depends on
we're not those kind of Mormons.
Expand your community, please. Get to know other people and stuff, and that, you know, so you're gonna have a joy and just a diversity of life. What was it, Malcolm Gladwell? He was talking about spaghetti sauce, right? He's like, diversity brings happiness. Y'all should look at that TED Talk. It's pretty great.
It's a good one. Yeah. Well, thank you all. We appreciate you being here, Crystal. We're excited she's here for our conference this week that we're gonna get to learn from her. And
I'm so excited.
Is there any good shows you've got coming up that we can direct people to check out your work in?
Oh, you know what? I feel like my shows mostly just ended. I'm teaching. This is my teaching season.
Great.
And then
plug some of the workshops you've got.
Okay, so I have a workshop coming up in Georgia at the Booth Museum Academy. Yeah, that's in September, so I'm really excited about that. And then, of course, in a few days, we have the Creative Arts Conference that I'm so excited about. And I get to nerd out both places over composition and neuroaesthetics, which I get so excited about. I just love it so much. So hopefully everybody else loves it too. But I will tell you that a passion project that I'm working on that I don't have a date yet is that I really want to start doing, or I am doing, retreats for women that are focusing on some of the existential problems that the artist women are facing. So I teach technical workshops, but I'm telling you, every single one, I have at least probably 2 women at least that pull me aside, usually crying, with the same types of situations that they're trying to work out with themselves, which are like all the things that I've been through and I've worked through. And so I feel really strongly called to work in that space too.
It's amazing.
So,
we'll have to have you back once that's a little bit more fleshed out, because 100% I see that all the time.
Yeah. It's a real need.
Most tiniest question ever. When you go and like you do these workshops, who would like watch the kids while you were gone? Because I feel like most people would probably want to know that.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't start doing them until the kids were a little bit older. Okay. Primarily though, because I didn't feel like my skill level was high enough to teach. So that was something that I kept, putting on myself, that I wasn't good enough. That's kind of been a theme for me. So, but I would have been able to work it out because I was lucky enough to have parents and in-laws close by that if my husband needed to do other things, then, they could step in and help. I was very, very blessed when my kids were young that they were all around and helpful. So
that's awesome. Takes a village.
Yep.
Yeah.
So have a village and expand your community.
Yeah.
Not in your marriage. And that's where we want to leave it.
The end.
Thank you, everyone. That's the tea for today.
Yes. Thank you, guys. See you next time.